Hey fellas, so here's my update. I'm working on Denmark. So I'm about a little over halfway done. So the way that I figure it out is I thought our coaching window is December 1st through June 1st. And it takes me, because everyone's busy. So I have three part-time jobs right now outside of football that add up to a 1.25 FTE. And so I get this done when I can get it done. So I get like 10 minutes on Hudl here. I get 15 minutes here. And then when I'm working out of the house, like I might work for a half hour and then I'll work on my work stuff and then come back over lunch and just do some more stuff like that. So I figured I can get this done by March, or I will get this done by March 1st, and then I'm going to get my Chilton stuff done. My mindset always when I'm doing this is what level of preparedness has to be ready to beat Catholic Memorial, right? So that's always what I'm looking for. I don't really care if we're playing Random Lake or Brown Deer, but I want to make sure like I'm prepping enough for the kids to beat a team like Memorial. So looking at Memorial, like how do you beat them? Do you beat them with the talent you have? Now check this out, and you guys know all this, but look at their D-line. Their D-line, they're starting 380, 310, and 330. That's crazy. They got a sophomore O-lineman, 6'5", 315. And these dudes are all over 235 here, right? So that's a tough matchup for sure. Do you beat them by coaching? And Kevin's a really great guy. Bill Young, the Waukesha guy, isn't this last year's Wisconsin Coach of the Year. He's the United States Coach of the Year. He's the National Coach of the Year. Their D-line coach at Waukesha Catholic Memorial is the former head coach at Marquette University High School. So there's state titles in there. I think Sean and Craig know guys that are coaching there too, young guys that are successful college guys. And, it's a place everyone wants to be. So how do you match up? I think you have a staff of guys like at Two Rivers right now that you get everyone coaching all the time. They're always coaching on the field. You can count on these guys to have all their stuff ready and prepared. You have every guy in your staff knows how to break down film, and maybe it's just enough. It's just enough to be able to compete with a program like that. So now I'm going back to Rice Lake, and I know I talk about Rice Lake a lot. But that's because I learned stuff. So before I got to Rice Lake, I had coached down at Camp Randall twice. We won in 2000 and then again in 2001. But I learned more at Rice Lake than I did at any point up to there. Because I think at Spring Valley when I was there, we had good kids. And we were a small school, and we just had a lot of talent. And at Rice Lake, they did not have the talent relative to the teams they were competing against, but they had a program and they had a system. So just check this out. I think if you look at this, in their conference, they had an enrollment of 726, right? So if you looked at Menominee, 1027, Chippewa, 1455, Hudson, 1832, get the picture here, 1620, and North, I think it's like 1580 or something like that. Yeah, 1588. So they shouldn't compete. But what they do is they're prepared. And I think they're doing what we're thinking of doing. So they run flexbone. They run a really easy offense that's dependent on tricky reads, right? So they do the same thing in practice every day, every day, every day, every day. It's really basic. It's really easy. But the difficult part is picking up your reads. So I think what we're doing is we're taking that whole offensive package, and it's just like making like syrup, and you're taking all of that sap, and you're just boiling it until you get something really concentrated and really sweet, right? Pure. So you want to boil that thing down. But the tricky part is then putting in the reads. So trying to put our kids in a good position. So this is their huddle coming forward into the 2022-23 season. So they have all their things mapped out, right? They have, every year they have 1, 2, 3, 4 in the state championship ready to go. Okay, so if we look at Menominee, this is for next year. Okay, so this is the stuff they have ready so far. This is their game with Menominee from this year. Okay, so they've got everything tagged, all ready to go. What's interesting about what they do, if they play Menominee on a Friday night, and let's say next week they have Superior, coach won't release Superior film until everything is filled in from the game before that they just finished. So they really understand, like, it might be a short-term loss if you don't get that Superior game Saturday, instead of getting it Saturday morning, you don't get it till Sunday morning. Like, it might be a short-term loss for the preparing, but they understand it's the long-term win. Like, if we have this Menominee done now, we don't have to sit in the summer and try to figure this stuff out. For next year, they already have all of Menominee's big plays from this year that they could get hold of. Anything, I think that's 10 plays or 10 yards or greater, and they have that all done. The extra game that they picked up, the Menominee New Richmond game from week 6, that was the one game that was exchanged, so they have that all marked up and ready to go for next year. And then they were able to get Menominee Wanakee. I don't know where they got that from, but check this out. Isn't that cool? Dun 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 dun. Oh yeah. Okay, so yeah, they started getting that Wanakee Menominee game ready. Looks like they're doing pretty well. Okay, so that stuff's all ready to go. So how does this process work? I think the way I explained it before, it was like one of those magic eye puzzles, right? You can't see the stuff if you're looking for it, but if you kind of unfocus, you'll see it. I also compared it to like a puzzle, like doing a jigsaw puzzle. And the way I thought about that is the first thing you have to do is you just have to flip the pieces over. It doesn't matter how you do it, you just got to flip them, flip them, flip them, flip them. So that's just doing the work. Sit down, enter your fields, enter, 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 flipping puzzle pieces. Then, as you're flipping pieces, you start to see something. So those are the hunches. You're like, oh, so I'm doing Denmark right now, and I'm like, okay, so I see a lot of unbalanced stuff. I see a lot of trades, which we never caught during the game. I see oil and ore, like offset I right, offset I left. I see a lot of that coming up. So is that significant? Is that not significant? So I start making some hunches. So it goes to flipping pieces, then it goes making a hunch. Now, this is where Kevin's at right now, and I think he's in the Columbo phase right now. So that's like you start doing your detective work, and you start verifying what you have. So if you've got all your data entered, then you can just start clicking and, okay, create this report. So I'm looking at Denmark, and I'm like, okay, that offset I, offset left, what do we got here? So I went through here, and I created a report. Now, how do you recreate your own report? Let's say I click here, and I want to go to report, and I want to create my own report. Because I think that there's something to offset I and offset I left and offset I right. So I break it down into ODK. So then I want to see, I marked a field called offset I and right, and then I entered follow and away off of that. So then I created that report, and I noticed that there were 62 plays, and 29 of those plays had offset I right and offset I left. And then I wanted to know, does the play follow the fullback on offset I, or does it go away from him? Interesting. So 93% of the time that the plays followed the fullback. And check this out. The plays that went away from the fullback and offset I, 2 plays out of the 29 that totaled 3 yards. The ones that followed, 27 plays that totaled 190 yards. So then I went into here, and then I clicked here, and then that's every play out of offset I that followed the fullback. So then I ran a bunch of other reports off of Denmark, like when they traded. So they ran 7 trades against us. Now get this. We didn't pick up the trades. Number 1, our end didn't move over. Number 2, our 3 tech and our 1 tech didn't move. Our linebackers flipped it. Most of the other time, we didn't pick it up on the D-line. So when they traded, they were averaging 8.1 yards a play. When they weren't trading, they were averaging 4.3. So every time they traded, they basically doubled up because we weren't picking it up. So then I went through here, see all the plays that they traded on. Now, the other thing I noticed, again, this was a hunch, but it was verified then through film, and it just drives me crazy. But every time that they trade, well, there's a pre-snap read for when they trade. But check this out. When they move and trade, you got to be set for a second. I did the math. They're usually down under 0.3 of a second on the line of scrimmage. And Menominee does this too, and this is why I guess I recognize this, but they're just doing a touch and go. We should be able to figure that out. Again, the other one was 0.27, this one's 0.29, so they're not set. Okay, so what I did is I flipped all the pieces. As I'm flipping, some hunches are coming up. And then I run reports to verify my hunches. So what I sent to Kevin was why we lost to Denmark. And this is what I said. I said, by the numbers, they ran 62 plays for 290 yards for a 4.8 average. At first, I thought their unbalanced looks messed up. Or I thought unbalanced looks messed us up when they went unbalanced. Did not mess us up. So they ran 6 unbalanced plays for a total of 7 yards. Okay. Trades messed us up. They ran 7 trades of the 62, averaged 8.1 on a trade, 4.3 without a trade. And then we missed their fullback key when they went offset I and right. Okay, 62 plays, they ran 29 offset I's. On those 29, we mentioned this before, they followed the fullback 27 times. The 29 offset plays averaged 6.7 yards. And then their non-offset I only averaged 3.2. So basically, when they came up against us, they were averaging 3.2 yards a play, unless they went to their offset I and we didn't understand the fullback key, and that went from 3.2 to 6.7. Now, I told you I'm about a little over halfway done with Denmark. So what I'm doing right now is I'm figuring out waggles and floods. That's basically all they threw. If like you're looking and they're moving their pocket right and left, it's just a waggle or a flood. Always tight end on the backside. They're dragging him across, and either the fullback, they're putting him in the play side flood, or the backside waggle. So what I'm trying to figure out right now, where is the tight end relative to the field or boundary when they're throwing the ball? Where's the fullback relative to the field boundary? Where's the fullback relative to the tight end, who's relative to the field boundary? So, like, if you can start figuring out, okay, it's a 3rd and 7, now the tight end and the fullback are going to the short side of the field. What are we looking for, right? We're looking for probably a waggle. So that's what I'm trying to do, but I want to have the numbers to verify that. Again, flip pieces, come up with a hunch. Right now, this is my hunch. My hunch is a lot of times they're putting tight ends to the boundary, and they're bringing them across. And that's going to be maybe one of our keys for waggles, floods. But I don't know that, so now I have to run reports to verify. This is what I thought. If we would have just adjusted to their trades, which we didn't do, and if we would have keyed their fullback on offset I's, game would have been a coin flip. And then if I can understand this flood and waggle and explain it to you guys and explain it to the kids, then we win the game. So then I did a little bit more digging on flood and waggle, and I sent this to Kevin. Denmark threw the ball weak over 80% of their passing attempts, right? So it makes sense because they're probably putting their tight end to the boundary, drag them on flood, waggle, and then your quarterback always has room to stretch a moving pocket. So if you do the verification, and I'm still doing the verification, flip the pieces. As you're flipping, some hunches will come up. Then go into your reports and verify the reports. Then you can verify with their personnel, right? So let's look at their personnel right now. They're going to have the same QB. They're going to have the same tight end. So we're thinking a lot of drag and stuff. One of their main receivers is back. The Conkle kid is not back, but the other kid. And they have a new fullback, but he's the same size as that Satori kid. Satori was like, let me see here. He was 6'1", 205, and the kid coming back is like 6 foot, 205 or something like that. So I think you're going to see the same thing. If you've got the same QB, you got the same tight end, you got the receivers, you got the same size fullback, I think you're going to see the same thing next year. Now, what they don't have coming back, if you looked at their sets from last year, they had their left tackle was 6 foot, 218, senior, and he was second team all conference. Their left guard is back, 6'1", 205. He'll be a senior. He was second team both sides of the ball, so that's kind of what they're going to set their offensive lineup around. Their center was 6'2", 240. He was a senior. Their right guard was 6', 225, a senior. He was first team unanimous both sides of the ball, and he was the lineman of the year for that conference. And their right tackle was a senior, 6'4", 225, and he was an honorable mention player as well. So line's going to look different, but the guys that they have, quarterback, tight end, receiver, and I think fullback are the same. Again, I'm about halfway through, and I said to close this out, I have more input data to look at, especially relative to the tight ends. You're trying to figure out that flood-waggle game, but I think we're in a good place to start. So, puzzle, flip your pieces. As you're flipping, all these hunches are going to start coming up. Write them down. Then you go into Columbo mode and you start verifying your hunches. Then verify what your prediction is based on personnel. And then you guys are good at this, especially with the conference games. Then go back into your verifications through your history. You know, what did they do last year? What did they do 2 years ago? What did they do 10 years ago? And you know the teams that did what they did are going to do what they do. All right, so that's where I'm at. I'm going to keep going, and let me give you a couple suggestions here too. So there were some questions like, well, how do I enter this and how do I enter that and what do I call this and what do I call that? And the bottom line is I don't care if you looked at the goofy way I call stuff, but this one I called a 9X, 9XX. So I know what that is, right? That's just a go route block, and on the other side, go route block block, and on the left side, right here on that first 9 that's starred, that's just telling me that that's the guy that they're targeting right now, and they're targeting their tight end over there. So that makes sense to me, might not make sense to you. But when it comes time to explain it, I'll know how to explain this to you. And I suppose that brings up the last part of this. Okay, we said it's a puzzle, flip the pieces. As you're flipping, you're going to come up with a hunch. Then you go into Columbo mode, verify through data. Then you verify through personnel. Then you verify through history. And then you tell a story. So what I'm going to do is when we're getting ready for our scrimmage with Denmark, I can tell kids stories. I can tell coaches stories. And all this stuff is going to make sense. The other thing I think you should know is like when you're entering yard lines, these, if you look at -26, that means it's relative to the offense. And then these boxes are automatic. So if it's at -26 and you enter 2, it's automatically going to go to -28. And if you are at -28 and you enter 6, it's going to go to -34. Now, if you are just watching yard lines and you're at 35 on this side of the field, and instead of entering this, on the next play you enter 26, it's automatically going to enter 9, right? So there's an algorithm that's correcting these. But you have to be adjusted to the offense. So now when we're on offense, we have to start on our -38, right? So negative on this side of the ball, positive on the other one. So yard lines have to be relative to the offense. Now, Kevin had a question. He's like, okay, so I called this one. This is our offense. I called this tray right, split left pistol. You call it whatever you want. It doesn't matter because all you're going to be doing is telling the story and explaining this. So you do you. I called it tray right, split left pistol. So don't worry about what I'm calling it. Don't worry about what anyone else is calling it. Don't worry about what you call plays as long as you know what it is. But what about when we're on defense now? So if I look at this one, I called this one twins left, tight right, oil, offset eye left. So I think that was confusing Kevin because he said, well, why don't you call this one twins right, tight left, offset eye right? And I said, well, I'm thinking about Dan right now because Dan's going to be over here and he's coming from this vantage point from the defense. So you do you, but we'll figure it out. So what I'm doing right now is when Two Rivers is on defense, I'm calling it from the vantage point of Two Rivers defense. And then when we are on offense, I call it from the vantage point of Two Rivers offense. This doesn't matter as long as you can flip pieces, as long as you can come up with hunches, as long as you can verify through data, as long as you can verify through your personnel. and as long as you can verify through what you know the history, then you have the tools to tell a story. Okay? All right. Any questions, let me know, or I'll see you on Saturday.